I think it's time now that we just go ahead and say it. Kentucky, Chicagoland, Rockingham, with the next gen car, they deserve to be on next year's schedule. Let's talk about it here on Stuck in the Catchfence. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We just got back from Kansas earlier this week. Actually, got back from Kansas at 7 a.m. to watch arguably one of the greatest races of all time. The greatest race according to Jeff Gluck's poll. So we'll have some of that coming out later this week as Travis and I traveled there. But I think Kansas, if it was in question, if there needed to be a shining light revealed upon some of NASCAR's oldest tracks, some of NASCAR's tracks that are no longer used, and actually a track that most people agree was really good before, the mile and a halves are what gets it done for the next gen car. I've been on this channel talking to you before about how I disagree with some of the thought process with the next gen car. It's underperformance on things like short tracks. It's underperformance on things like road courses. In terms of entertainment, you can even kind of add super speedways in there if they're only going to run 30% half throttle. But what this car has done has turned in something that NASCAR itself made its entree. Mile and a half tracks, cookie cutter tracks, if you want to call them that, were the most pivotal, the most widely used tracks in NASCAR. And with the Gen 6 car, everyone wanted them eliminated. They tried to go to 550 horsepower. They tried to decrease them on the schedule. But it was almost universal that everybody wanted to remove the amount of mile and a half that they could. And we saw that from 2019, removing Chicagoland. After 2020, removing Kentucky. And even an older track, it's not necessarily a mile and a half, but a track that was, I think, widely loved by a lot of people. The removal of Rockingham in the early 2000s. With this car, the next gen car, it has plenty of faults, and those faults may not get fixed in the near future. But one thing is for certain: we now have a car that on the mile and a halves, because of the aero package and the downforce, and more importantly the dirty air, you can drive and have an entertaining product on mile and a halves. It is one of the most impressive. It is one of the most entertaining. And oddly enough, it has now turned a place like Kansas into a discussion of whether or not it should be the championship race at the end of the year. So here's my plea to you. Here's what I'm trying to portray to you. Chicagoland had one of the best races of all time. Infamously, the slide job came from that when Kyle Busch battled Kyle Larson, who was driving the number 42 for Chip Ganassi at the time. Came down to the wire. One hits the wall, one bumps each other. They come down to it, and Kyle Busch ends up winning.
Kyle Busch, and here comes Larson. Larson to the bottom of the track.
Slide job.
Trying to take the lead away.
Slide job. Almost.
The momentum. The 18. They make contact. The 18 into the wall. They're side by side again. Going into 3 for the lead. Larson has the advantage. Here comes the 18. He puts the bumper to the back of him. The 18 into the wall. The 42 sideways.
Where's Harvick?
Here comes the 18. Kyle Busch will win.
Wow.
The last 2 races at Kentucky was a 3-wide finish in 2020 with Cole Custer winning his only career NASCAR win. in front of 0 fans because it was 2020. And in 2019, the Busch brothers battled it out on a green-white checker with Kurt Busch coming ahead of Kyle Busch.
Into the wall. That was Chase Elliott. Side by side, here comes Kurt Busch. He takes the lead away from his brother. But now, Kyle Busch fighting back. Contact made as they go into one. The Busch brothers, side by side. Tied up by Kurt Busch. Kyle Busch now fighting on the inside. Once again, Kurt Busch making that outside line work.
What does Jones do here if these two get together?
Coming out of turn 4. Kurt Busch with the advantage. Kyle Busch slides. Kurt Busch will win.
What a finish! Unreal.
Now, those are the last 2 wins. Not the last 2 wins. Those are 2 of the 3 last finishes on these tracks. The next to last win at Chicago, and the last 2 wins at Kentucky. Now, Kentucky infamously has some of the most lower rated wins or finishes in the Jeff Gluck poll. But it's also got 3 wins above 50%. Chicagoland up there as well. So whatever it is, your feelings on these tracks, and obviously Chicagoland's higher than most for most people, but I'm begging you to think the same thing for Kentucky. Think about this. Kansas, not that long ago, was scoring in the 30 percentile on was it a good race. Now, is that a perfect formula? No, of course not. There's many extenuating factors. But let me tell you this. I drove the 9 hours because we thought Kentucky had a chance to be really, really good, because it has been. Not disappointed. One of the best things I've ever done was hop in a car, wait 3 hours on a rain delay, sit there with below 60-degree temperatures and about 20-mile-an-hour winds, and watch one of the greatest races of all time, because my brain, not one time, told me of all the other things going on. It was purely, this is awesome. From stage 1, Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin, to stage 2, a more normal 1.5 miles, to of course what we saw on stage 3. Comers and goers, fast and slow. Kyle Larson wouldn't have even finished that race if Kyle Busch didn't race. Kyle Busch goes from 20th to 8th place on the last green flag. Green-white checker. Those same things, if you think about it, can happen at Kentucky. Chicagoland is kind of a Kansas in its own right, the only difference being the curved backstretch. But Kentucky has a sweeping turn 4 that's very difficult to drive into. And turns 1 and 2, you have to slow down so much that the opportunity of braking and passing would be there. Kentucky actually, when cars were the easier parts to drive with the 550 package, still had a lot of wrecks. This car, while it struggles, could revitalize and bring back from the dead 2, possibly 3 if they include Rockingham, racetracks that deserve to have a race. When we think about tracks that have 2 dates, the thing that NASCAR could do is make each date that much more special. 1 race in Richmond, that much more people come out. We've seen 1 race in Dover now. How many more people come out? I guarantee you in the fall, that many more people are going to go to Kansas. Not saying that we don't deserve 2 races at some tracks, but I would save it for really, really, really special tracks. A Darlington, a Talladega, which I'm getting more and more loose on if that deserves to. Absolutely a Daytona. Charlotte, if you would like. It's one of the crown jewels in this sport when it comes to the Coca-Cola 600. Don't hate the idea of having a 400-mile race there. But the more variety we can add to the schedule, the better opportunity you show your project, your what it is, your product across the country, from California all the way to the East Coast in New Hampshire, and you make that ticket that much more valuable. So I'm asking you, reach out, do the right things, make your voice heard. Kentucky, I'm telling you, would be a fun race. We know Chicagoland would be. Rockingham deserves a chance. The Gen 7 Next Gen car has brought back the dead and made it a possibility to live again. And little did we ever know it would be a little bitty racetrack in Kansas. That would be the reason. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments. If you disagree, you can let me know in the comments as well. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. You guys really took in the video that Travis and I did when it comes to Dale Jr. possibly moving into Cup. Obviously, the news came out that Ricky Stenhouse has signed an extension, but that doesn't mean that JTG Doherty, which by the near future could just be G Doherty, ends up trying to find another partner. Appreciate that, guys. We do enjoy it. We got tons of other things coming up. Joe's got an iRacing video he's going to do on what it takes to get into iRacing. We're going to talk about Kyle Larson, if he has a realistic chance to win the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. And also want to break down what your thoughts would be if we went back into the past. Instead of using the chase, use traditional points. Who would be champion? Who would not be champion? Who would be multiple time champion? And who would maybe have one of the easiest arguments for greatest driver of all time? All that and more on Stuck in the Catchfence. My name is Ryan Peters. I appreciate you guys watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.